Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of Professional Witches. And today I am really excited to present to you Debbie Crouch, the Arty Witch. Debbie is somebody I've worked with in various ways for some time now. I met her networking, and she's really a wonderful, positive lady who changes so many people's lives with the work she does. So, welcome, Debbie, to the show.
Thank you, Fiona, for such a lovely introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm only ever honest, as you know. So, yeah, Debbie, tell the listeners a little bit about the kind of work that you do as the Arty Witch.
Certainly, it's all about art for wellness. And it's in the essence that it's where you can think of thoughts in your head and get them out into paper, whether it's through colour, whether it's through shape, or whether it's through imagination. It's just letting yourself go and being in the moment to experiment.
Mm. So, yeah, I mean, you've got quite an interesting story as to why you started doing this. So, what led you into doing this kind of work?
Well, going through my own well-being journey, I
Mm,
can remember feeling at rock bottom, that I didn't have a value anymore, that I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was through taking the courage and stepping out to go to do a local course at aimed at adults, which was learning how to draw and paint for your well-being. And this was an amazing opportunity because you felt that you were in a safe space, you were connecting with like-minded people, and you were able to just have a go at doing something. You were encouraged to learn something new, and I absolutely loved it. I found that I had a passion for wanting to do this. And over time, it started changing my personality. I suddenly became more confident. I was able to talk to people. I felt that I knew what I wanted to do with my life.
mm,
Um, and I just thought all the changes that had gone through on my own personal journey, if I could just share that with somebody else, and just if a little bit of the magic could sprinkle into their lives, then I'd just feel that I'd done something good.
mm.
And that's where it started off.
Yeah, it's that sense of purpose that it gives you, isn't it? But I
It is.
think I think it's I don't think it changed your personality. I think it just brought it out. Um,
Mm.
do you feel like sometimes we can get so covered with other people's expectations and society's expectations, and we shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And then art is just a way that we express and it actually peels those layers back and reveals the true essence within us. Um,
Absolutely, because I think we become a people pleaser through life, and
Completely.
especially if you're an empath
Mm,
or you have a heart that cares for other people, you find that all of your energy goes towards helping others, and you feel that you haven't got a right to think of yourself.
mm,
Other people's needs and making them feel happy is more important.
mm, yeah,
And you don't realize that self-care and looking after yourself is so important. And it's a shame that things like that aren't taught to young people
yeah,
to realize that you have got a right to want to do the things for yourself and to balance your own energies. And that's one thing that I love about you. You've been able to help me to learn lots of different things in that respect and no longer be afraid that I want to share that side of it with other people.
yeah. Well, absolutely, because it's at the end of the day, it's not about you or me. It's about the message that we put out into the world, and that's not. It's sometimes we can stand in our own way of that message. And it's to acknowledge that actually it's not about us as people. We're just like the channel, like God's channel to spread that love and message out into the world to empower people. Um, and it's something else you said was like we can feel like we're being selfish by looking after ourselves, but it's actually selfish to not look after ourselves,
Mm.
because if we're not good, we can't help other people in the way that we want to, right? You know, like, when you're going through challenges, we were talking before we hit record about some of the challenges that we're facing at the moment. And when you start running around after other people and not looking after yourself, and it can still happen to all of us. It can, even when you realize this stuff, you can still find yourself sucked into that kind of black hole of stopping looking after yourself and just doing things for other people. But then your energy wanes, and then you've got less to give. It's that whole Ace of Cups thing. I think that was a card that came out quite a lot when we worked together, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like focusing on that self-care piece. So yeah, definitely. And creating art is definitely one of those ways of, it's like, for me, because I mean, I've done your art stuff. I was in one of your books, in fact, your wonderful Altogether Art
Altogether.
for Wellness.
Yes.
Yeah, my story featured in that, and it really did allow me to process a lot of stuff. There was a piece that I created. Now, here's the thing. I thought I'd done this piece on the evening my mother passed, but I was wrong. It was actually 5 months later that I did it. Um, but my father was unwell at that point, and he was only maybe 6 weeks away from passing himself. But yeah, it came up in my Facebook stories, and it was actually in June that I did that, June the 5th. So I'm like, okay, it's funny how your memory plays tricks on you. But doing that one piece, and now I look back at it, I can really see what my heart was trying to say. And it was one of those things where I just did not know what I was going to do when I started to do it. I got my acrylics out, I got my pad, and I just started daubing. And I ended up with this piece that people still now today say is, like, beautiful, and people see their own interpretations in it, because it's very abstract.
It's
Um,
how your emotions come out on the paper, though, isn't it? You don't always know what you're thinking, but
mm,
it could suddenly appear in
mm,
front of you through your painting or your drawing.
yeah. And even if I journaled at that point, I don't think I would have expressed exactly what was going on, but the art spoke for me. Um, it's amazing. I mean, is that something you found when you started doing your own art for wellness journey?
I did because when I looked into it, I very much liked the art therapeutic side of it.
Mm,
And it's not from a sense of being able to tell somebody from a clinical point of view what they should be doing, but understanding what goes on with the mind and your thoughts and how you express yourself. And
mm,
that's what led me on to doing start therapeutic art.
mm,
And for start therapeutic art, it's about bits and bobs, as we call it.
mm,
And we tend to collect lots of different things, whether it's lollipop sticks, bits of wool, material, um, anything that's lying around, and we use that to create a picture.
mm.
So we've even started doing that with children now, making fun animal faces, which they absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And it's just knowing that it doesn't matter what you create your picture in. It's about looking at shapes, looking at colour, getting it out there on paper, and
Yeah.
just expressing however you might be feeling.
Mm. I love that. I've always loved. I mean, I did when I was living in the UK, I did a similar kind of project, slightly different. I think I spoke to you about them. A place in Oswestry. Um, Nobody knows where that is. In Shropshire, nobody even knows where that is. So, but it's a beautiful little thing, and a great little organization. And so I love to see more places like that spring up, like the Art for Wellness. Because you're a CIC now, aren't you? You've
Yeah, because I wanted to be a community interest company because that was my passion from the beginning. I was lucky enough to get lottery funding because my ethos had always been to provide something free for those that needed it the most.
mm,
So we set up the free resource library, where there's a lot of content in there that people can interact and download the ebooks and videos, do the art in their own time, and learn about the simplicity of how to mix colours, how to create a picture, how to start drawing, or in like in the Facebook group, for example, uh, which was set up. We love people to share their artwork, and that is primarily what it's about.
Mm.
But the interaction that goes in there with people leaving feedback and leaving messages, and it's just organically grown. It's wonderful. And that's when I came up with the idea of doing the book that you featured in Fiona, which was
Yeah.
about sharing how members' art is the key to it all, really. It's showing what can be done, what and what they got from it, getting their feedback,
Mm.
understanding how it's changed their lives, how it's made them feel. Um, and we just love being able to see what other people do. It's not just what we create, it's what the members do as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that was actually that group. I'd done quite a few pieces more recently and was a little bit kind of not sure about sharing these into the wider world, but I felt like your group was a safe space to just put them
Thank
there.
you.
It's a very safe space, and yeah, and I started to get some really lovely comments. So I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna put these on my profile. And then I got even more lovely comments, but I didn't feel confident to do that until I kind of released it into that safe space. So yeah, definitely share the link to your free group with the show note. I'll put in the show notes for you. So it's a great place for anybody, even if you're not confident in doing art, or if you don't think you're arty, go and have a look, because there's some lovely shares in there of people who, you know, do you know what I mean? They're not going to make a living being an artist, but that's not the point of it, is it? I mean, I'm not
Mhm.
going to make a living being an artist, but I enjoy doing it, and it's really benefited me. And I find when I create something, it actually activates that creative side of my brain, so I can then come up with new ideas for my business, for example. Or yeah, it's a lot of knock-on effects of doing it, I
And
find.
there's a lot of people that have said to me, I've been watching your group for like 3 months, 6 months, a year even.
Mm,
And even though they didn't feel that they could contribute,
mm,
they've enjoyed what they've seen.
mhm.
And I had a lady recently who did actually say, I have been watching you for a while, and it made me feel that I could share mine. And then she got some lovely comments from that. So yeah, like you say, it's a safe space, and that was what it was primarily set up to be.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
definitely. But I mean, beyond that, you've got a membership as well, haven't you?
We've also got the VIP membership, which is where we deliver more tutorials at different levels, so that if there anybody at the stage where they wanted to take their art a little bit further, we do video recordings and sessions in there, and also guest speakers can come along, like yourself. I know that you've one
Mm,
of our guest speakers in there to show how they can support well-being. Um, and not just that, we've gone into the community. So from being online, we've now gone into leisure centres and library services, working with people with learning disabilities or lots of different backgrounds to show how art can bring so much joy into their life.
mm.
Um, in fact, we had one recently where we did one for children, and even we we learned things the children have put together, the ideas that they came up with. It was really exciting. We absolutely love it.
But the great thing
Um,
with children and creativity, I mean, back in a previous life, maybe 20 years ago, I myself did craft and art workshops with kids through a charity. And yeah, you might have a process like, oh, to one thing we did was make flowers, for example. There was a little technique of making flowers with crepe paper that my mum taught me, that I shared with them. But they had their own way of doing it, and they came out with new ideas of, yeah, it's like they're unfiltered, aren't they? The children don't have this kind of, they haven't had society dampen them down for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever. So they can be really innovative. They've got like this raw energy to them, which is really powerful. And if you can encourage that in children and encourage them to continue that through their lives, then yeah, it's a really powerful skill actually, in whatever they end up doing, I think.
It isn't, and creativity should be something that you can turn to at any age.
Mm,
It doesn't. I spent a lot of time where I've been creative as a child, and I can remember that one of the teachers said I'd never be any good at art. I don't know what I was doing it for at secondary school that really put me off. And I
mm,
think sadly that can happen to so many people where a situation happens in life where somebody else puts them off pursuing what they enjoy doing.
mm,
But when you learn that art doesn't have to be perfect, there's no rules, regulations. It's not about creating this picture that's copied exactly as somebody else has done. It's exploring about how you would choose to do that picture, how you would explore that colour or that shape,
mm.
and learning to love what you do yourself.
Absolutely. And you know
Yeah.
what? It reminded me of the story of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, whose music teacher told him he couldn't sing. But what did Elvis do? He went out and he sang in a style that no one had ever seen before, and made it his own, and became the most famous, successful singer of all time. So if somebody doesn't like what you do, and it just means it's not for them, doesn't mean nobody else is going to like it. And I think there's a big lesson in that for all of us. Um, you may think you're not creative, and I have people say that to me in client sessions, and I say, well, if you, I mean, you may think you're not creative, but it just means you haven't found something that you enjoy doing or that you feel you're good at. And to be good at it doesn't mean anything really. It's all about the enjoyment. People say, I can't sing. Well, here's the fact: everyone can sing, okay? You may not be able to sing well, but that's actually nothing to do with your ability to sing. I've found when I'm on my life path and in tune with things, I sing pretty good, you know, not the best, not the worst, somewhere in the middle, and I love doing it. But when I'm not on that, in that good place, my singing voice, I sound like a cat being strangled. So, you know, it's kind of like the vibration you put out into the world is reflected in the creativity that you put out into the world as well. It's all on that vibrational level that you find. That's something
Yeah.
I've noticed. Yeah.
And I think it's realizing that it's all right if you don't, if you have a day where it doesn't feel right to do something, then that's all right. You don't have to do the creative thing. You could go for a walk. You could sit in the garden. You could have a coffee with a friend. Just do something that makes you feel relaxed, that makes you feel good. Whether it's watching the clouds in the sky, whether it's I don't know, I can't think of anything
Yeah,
else,
but there's
but
an infinite
yeah.
number of things that can get your vibration right. I mean, I'm lucky to live uh, pretty remotely, so I can walk out of the door in 2 minutes, be in the middle of a forest. Not everyone is that privileged, I get that, but for me, that's a way to really like come back to myself, to nature, because we are nature, and nature, it creates the most beautiful displays. You just have to go and look in the forest and see what's naturally growing right now. It's very colorful out there, and that can just inspire you. So you might you might not be inspired, but you go out into nature and see something new. Oh, this has changed. The leaves are growing. The trees are more in leaf now, or this new flowers emerged, and come back and feel inspired to create something. Or
And
yeah,
every season brings something new, doesn't it? And I do get a lot of inspiration from nature.
mm,
It's like tapping into your childlike self again.
mm.
Like being into the woods, we've taken wax crayons and we've just rubbed the bark like you did as a child, and then made that into a picture. And the feeling that you get just from doing that activity,
You've actually
it's
just taken me right back to being 6 again with that. I can remember doing bark rubbings with at school, at nursery school, even like when I was 2 or 3. Yeah, bark rubbings and the different trees giving different patterns. Like if you've got nothing else, go and do some bark rubbings. In fact, everyone listening to this right now, I want you to go and do some bark rubbings and just be you again, like why not? If you've got nothing else, do some bark rubbings. And how about this? Use that as the basis to create something else. Like what could you do with that? Could you color in the gaps between the crayon marks? Like how amazing would that be?
well, one of the things that it led us on to doing is what is called art journaling, but art journaling in a sense of just making your own picture.
Mm,
So whether it was a piece of artwork and you've done some tree rubbing, you might cut something out of it and stick it on something else. You might add a bit of material. You might add you might want to draw something at the side or doodle at the side, and it's just when you're in that moment, it's how where that picture takes you. You just never know.
you never know.
Oh.
That's one of the most beautiful things are created, in fact. I love that. Oh, that's really just inspired me, actually. I'm just thinking now, what trees have we got in the garden? What's got the most interesting bark patterns on it? And yeah,
Well, we did something, and apologies if I can't say the word. Is it face paraphernalia or something? It's when you look at something and it's got a shape behind it, and we look at trees often,
yeah.
and you could see that it had a personality to it. Like we
Well, you
found one
see, there's the
that
whole
was a
there's Facebook
grumpy
groups.
tree.
There's Facebook groups where like you see faces and things, and you can see like faces in trees and bark,
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
And there was another one that I found where you looked at the actual design on the bark, and it could either look like an owl or it looked like a monkey's face, depending on what angle you looked at. And I did that into a drawing, but I took the photo and then showed people how they could use that in their imagination. What can they see out of that tree?
Mm,
And there was one story we had where we found one that was called Hallelujah Tree, and it had its arms going up like that.
yeah.
And we got a lot of inspiration from that particular area. But it was really sad when we went there recently because they'd been cutting down some of the trees and they cut his arms off. And it was like, we were so upset that
Oh.
the hallelujah tree wasn't the same anymore. But yeah, so make the most of it when
Well, this is the
you
other
see
thing.
it.
It's forever changing, isn't it,
Yeah.
nature? But I mean, that's a man-influenced change, but even without that, I mean, back in November here, we had storms, really, really bad storms, and a lot of the trees were just taken out, like completely taken out. They were down, they were across the roads. You couldn't actually drive anywhere for about 2 days because there were trees blocking, and everyone who had a chainsaw was out, and all you could hear for miles around was just you couldn't even walk the dogs because like all the
Oh,
forests were still unstable and trees were still coming down because they'd been
mm.
weakened. Chaos, complete and utter chaos. And you can still see now there are still trails with trees across them, but what you're starting to see now is new growth from that, new like changes, like tree stumps that were down from that time. Uh, they're starting to decompose, and you're starting to get new little beetles moving into them and new life. And yeah, right. It's dynamic, isn't it? Things change, and that's one thing that art actually opens up to you, because you start to look around you and see things differently.
Yeah.
I think nature is much more inspirational for artists than I mean, yeah, you see paintings of buildings and stuff, but for me, oh, here come the dogs. Everybody, here come the dogs. Um, for me, like, it's much more inspirational to see things that change through the season. A good one for that, we were talking earlier. Do you remember Bob Ross?
Yeah.
Like Bob Ross. If you've not seen, if you don't, okay, so we all know that Bob Ross stood there with the thing and painted a beautiful piece of art in 30 minutes, effectively. But go and watch his technique, because he just gets the brush and goes dip, 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 and he's got a tree. Um, it just shows you what's possible. And indeed, Debbie has a YouTube channel where she does art tutorials, and she has other people come on from the group to do art tutorials too. So yeah, watching those kind of things can just inspire you to have a go yourself, I think.
And
So
it's doing something simple. Like I can remember we did a painting of a tree, and all it was cotton buds that you
yeah,
tied together and dipped in paint. But yet the effect it gives can be amazing. And
yeah,
it's as well.
yeah. And I did see one that did that. They used it as like they had the tree and they wanted some flowers on the tree, and they had the cotton buds tied in a little bunch.
Yeah.
I do apologize if anybody can hear my dogs trying to kill each other. Puppers, puppers, please, not now. Goodness me. I apologize if anyone can hear. Apparently other people can't hear this, but I can hear just that. Can you hear it, Debbie? Can you hear the dog?
Only very faintly in the background. Yes. Yeah.
Um, I think they may have to stop. Um, okay, go on, out, go on. I don't do bloopers reels. I leave it in. I leave this in, so this is going to be part of the podcast.
Absolutely. It's real, isn't it?
It is real. Oh my goodness. If I could put their paws into paint and just let them dip around on a piece of paper, I'm sure that would be a fascinating painting. Um,
You'd have to have a big space and let them just, yeah.
yes, and a big piece of paper. Yeah, yeah, many ideas. I mean, you see, people create art from all sorts of things, though, don't they? Like their bodies, people doing like handprints into trees, or like footprints into something, or yeah, I've even seen, I'm sure I've seen this, or is it just my sordid brain throwing this out? Like people going like stripping or wearing like a bodysuit and covering themselves in paint and rolling around on a big piece of paper.
Oh,
Yeah, no, wouldn't that actually be
interesting.
quite fun? Just I don't care what the painting looks like, just to get mucky and roll around on a piece of paper for some
Just
excuse.
let yourself go. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and just fling some paint at the yeah. Wow. There's all sorts of things that can happen. It's no holds barred with art, really. It doesn't have to be this. I mean, it's beautiful when you see it, but this meticulously painted thing that looks perfectly like something. It's beautiful. And I know a couple of people who do this hyper realistic art where they are literally reproducing a photograph. And that takes immense talent. But not all art is about that. And people
Mm.
shouldn't feel that they can't draw if they can't do that. You know, it's encouraging people to have a go. Um, But I want to ask you, Debbie, what kinds of results do your clients get when they come along to one of your workshops? Do you see a change from the beginning to the end of the workshop in that person, or over time? What kind of things happen for people?
Yeah, I would say sometimes when people come, they're a little bit hesitant, they're a bit unsure of where to start. But then you can see that they relax into it, and they start having a go and creating a picture.
Mhm.
One thing that we like to do is we've just got some blank frames made out of cardboard, and we put them over so it looks, you can show what their painting would look like if it was framed. Because I think if you can hang that up on the wall and be proud of what you've made,
Mm,
and just to see how they can see it in a different way and be
yeah,
proud of what they've done.
yeah, yeah,
And when they say that they've enjoyed the experience, or they haven't done anything like that for a long time, or
mm,
they've forgotten just how much fun they could have from doing it.
yeah. It is immensely fun. And actually, I haven't painted anything for a few months, and I need to get back to doing it. So this, for me, even if nothing else, this is a nice reminder to get my. I've got an art box with my acrylic paints. That's my preferred thing. I've got pencils and felt tips. It's like, why not do a bit of mixed media? It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to follow a form.
No.
It's just gotta like let it go. Yeah, incredible. It's it's really about just having a go, isn't it? But
It
if
is.
somebody really is like, oh no, 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 I can't do it. I'm not good. I've tried. I mean, what would you say to that person? What's a good sort of place to start with that?
I would just say something like, remember, whatever you make doesn't have to be perfect. It's about how it makes you feel.
Mm,
And I'd ask some questions like what their favorite color was, or what their favorite shape was, or where they like to go on holiday, or what's their favorite pet, and try and get something from them,
mm,
and then work on it that way.
yeah.
Uh, like we did one recently, which was about animals and asking people what their favorite animals were. And even though they'd go ahead and colour and draw and add to it themselves. And it's just that getting started. Or has our internet gone?
I think yours is going a bit shonky, but yeah, no, we kind of got the most of
Oh,
it.
was it? Sorry.
It's normally mine. But I mean, mine looks okay from my point of view, but who knows? Um, and my apologies, I've got Miska here. I'm stopping her from going and attacking her sister because I can't bear the noise right now and do a podcast. But yeah, everybody, Miska is here. Miska, do you want to come and say hello to the people on YouTube? You want to come and say hello? Hello. Hello. Here she
Doesn't want
is.
to miss out.
It's my baby girl.
Oh, bless.
Puppy. But I'm not letting you go because you're just going to attack Luna and make a load of clatter noises. Um, we always know if the dogs make an appearance, it's quite a good thing. This is actually the first time they've come and interrupted a podcast of mine, so it's not doing too badly. Um, what did I want to ask you next? I want to ask you, who's your favorite artist?
I think right at the beginning it was Picasso.
Mm,
And I can remember we went over to York because they got an old church that they converted into a display for his artwork. And it was like there were the images all over the walls, and it's just the simplicity of just being able to express yourself. Um, but I guess I don't have one particular thing that I like. I can see the beauty in lots of different things. It
mm,
might not be something I want to create myself,
no.
but you can certainly see the work or the talent that's gone behind making it.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah. I always love Van Gogh. I just love the brush strokes that he does. That sort of like it's almost like dots, but it's like little dashes. Like the Starry Night is my favorite
yeah,
painting of all time. But then I spotted there's a one that's called something cypress trees or something, and it's like for me the Starry Night, but in the daytime. So it's like with the sun and the clouds. Incredible. I love his eye of creation. Um, yeah. But yeah, so pop in the comments, people, who was your favorite artist and why? It would be interesting to know what other people think too. So well, my final question that I ask all of my guests is if you had one piece of advice, one like message to the world, like your legacy, what would that be? Just a tiny question, no pressure. It's
Just have a go. Don't be afraid to have a go. And there's no such thing as doing things wrong. I can remember our art teacher used to say it was a happy accident. So if you were starting to do a picture and it didn't quite go the way that you thought it would, sometimes it can surprise you.
Mm,
Just think that it's a happy accident. It was meant to go in a different direction.
mm,
And it's the learning that you get behind it as well.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And as you're saying that, I can think of a few incidences where that's happened for me. And I think that also applies to life.
Yes.
You take a turn that you didn't mean to take down a street that you didn't mean to go down, and you end up having an amazing experience as a result. So
Yeah.
yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Debbie. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak to you as always. And yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch with Debbie, all her links are going to be in the show notes. So there we go.
Oh, thank you, Fiona. It's been wonderful to come along and talk with you today, as always.
As always, we always have a good chat, don't we? So before the dog starts to play again, um, guys, please give me a minute. All right. They're like, come on, mummy, we want to go for a walk. All right. Thank you everyone for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Professional Witches. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks very much.
Bye.